We're always hearing that medical AI is the future, right? A revolutionary technology that's going to save countless lives. But what if that's only half the story? The source material for today's explainer argues that behind all those promises of better health for all of us, there's another system at play, one that's maybe less about saving lives and a whole lot more about power and profit. This one sentence from our source really gets to the heart of the whole thing, and that's the paradox we're going to unpack right now. A system that's built using public data but ends up creating private profit. It really forces you to ask, who is this revolution for? So first, let's start with the vision we're all sold on. And look, the promise of medical AI is genuinely revolutionary. I mean, we're talking about algorithms that can spot diseases way earlier than a human doctor, tools that make hospitals run smoother, and tech that can, quite literally, save lives. It's a really powerful, really inspiring picture, right? Okay, but this is where the source material we're looking at says, hold on a second, let's peel back the curtain. It suggests that underneath this amazing vision, there's a hidden engine, an economic model built on our data that has huge consequences for who actually gets access to these cures. So what's the fuel for this entire AI revolution? Well, it all comes down to one thing, data. And not just any data, our most personal, intimate health data. This stuff is the raw material, the absolute foundation that everything else is built on. And, the sheer scope of this data, it's just massive. I mean, we're not just talking about a single X-ray here. It's your MRI scans, your genetic code, images from pathology, your doctor's notes, the whole digital record of your body. And here's the kicker. According to the source, this data is overwhelmingly generated in public hospitals and clinics, contributed by all of us. Okay, and this is a really crucial point the source makes. This data, it's not something we're choosing to sell on the open market. We give it up out of necessity, when we're sick, when we're vulnerable, and we're looking for care. We as a society create this incredibly valuable resource together, and yet we have absolutely zero ownership over it. So, what happens to all this incredibly valuable, free stuff? Well, our source argues that it gets funneled into this closed loop, a cycle that's super profitable. This loop is described as the core problem that's driving all the inequality in the system. So let's break this cycle down step by step. Okay, step one. We, the public, give up all the raw data through our hospitals for free. Step two. Private tech companies take that data and use it to build these powerful proprietary AI models. And then, and this is the real kicker, step three. They turn around and sell that AI right back to the very same public hospitals that gave them the data to begin with. So you see the pattern here, right? The source has a name for this model, economic extraction. It's a pattern you see in other industries where a public resource is taken, processed by a private company, and then sold back to the public at a premium. So you, the citizen, you end up paying twice, once with your data and then again with your tax money or your insurance fees. All right, so the obvious question is why? Why does it have to be this way? Why aren't these incredible, life-saving tools just open source? And the source argues that the reasons go way deeper than just making a quick buck. They're actually, well, they're structural. Okay, so reason number one, according to the source, is all about geopolitical power. You've got to think bigger than just quarterly earnings reports. In this new world, medical AI isn't just another product, it's a massive strategic asset for any country or company that controls it. And this slide, wow, it really lays out what's at stake. See, whoever controls medical AI doesn't just own a piece of software. They have influence over how we diagnose and treat diseases, how hospitals are run, and they get access to the health data of entire populations. To make it open source, that would mean giving up all that control, and that's just not going to happen. All right, let's get to the second reason, because it's a big one. This is about the money, but it's not just a one-time sale. This is about building a machine that just prints money over and over again. The source is pretty clear on this. An open source model would just completely torpedo this whole setup. Big tech makes money at every single stage, from the huge cloud contracts to store the data, to the fees for the insane amount of computing power you need. They charge for every API call, sell the software licenses, and lock hospitals into these expensive contracts. It's a whole ecosystem that's designed from the ground up to be a closed shop. And then there's a third really critical reason the source brings up for why this tech is so locked down. And it really boils down to minimizing risk, keeping control and avoiding liability. Think about it. A closed system is basically a legal shield. If the AI model is a black box that nobody can look inside, then independent researchers can't check it for bias or for errors. It makes it way harder for patients to sue if a mistake happens, and it blocks regulators from demanding improvements. It's basically a fortress, a legal and commercial fortress that protects the whole monopoly. Okay, so we've talked about the power plays and the money, but what's the actual human cost of a system like this? The source argues that while the tech itself can save lives, the business model is what ends up deciding who gets saved. I mean, the potential here is it's breathtaking. The source points to studies showing AI can cut deaths from sepsis, a super life-threatening condition, by as much as 20%. The point is, the tech works. There's no doubt it can save lives. But here's where we see the huge disconnect. In wealthy countries, sure, these AI tools are getting integrated into modern hospitals. But in lower-income nations, it's a totally different story. The software is just way too expensive. The cloud infrastructure isn't there, and so access is effectively denied. The result is what you see here. And this is where we get to what the source calls the ultimate tragic irony of the whole situation. The very people, the diverse populations all over the world, whose data is absolutely essential to build this stuff, they're the ones who are completely locked out. They can't afford the cure that their own information helped create. So, is this just how it is? Is there no other way? The source argues pretty emphatically that no, it doesn't have to be. This isn't a tech problem that needs a better algorithm. It's a systems problem, and that means it needs a systemic solution. Let's just take a second to look at the scale of what we're talking about here. Our source cites figures showing literally millions of preventable deaths every single year in low and middle-income countries, and it suggests that if medical AI was treated as a public good, it could prevent hundreds of thousands of those deaths. That gap between what the technology can do and what our economic system allows it to do, well, that gap is measured in human lives. So, okay, what would a real solution actually look like? Well, the source proposes a pretty clear path forward. And we're not talking about small tweaks here. We're talking about fundamental structural change. Things like treating patient data as a collective resource, building and funding public AI models on public infrastructure, and demanding radical transparency. It's basically about building an entire parallel system, a public one. And that all brings us back to the big, provocative question that our source material leaves us with. It's really the question at the absolute heart of this whole debate. If the public's data, public hospitals, and public money are the ingredients that create this amazing, life-saving technology, who should get to own the cure? That's the question we have to grapple with.